Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of The Standard is the Standard. That's the Behind the Steel Curtain flagship podcast, and that means joining me as always, this guy, Lance Williams. How's it going tonight, Lance?
I'm doing fantastic. I was told I should smile to start the show, that was kind of TV-ish. So, I'm to start the show.
Well, there you go. So at this point, I like to ask, I did this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was really cool. Just see where people are watching from. Like, so we have someone, Double T said he's in from Shreveport, Louisiana. I want to see where everyone else is chiming in from. We'll get to some of those as we go. But Lance, it's been a long time since the Steelers have played a football game, and people are still talking about I guess both because the appeal process with Myles Garrett has happened. He was in the NFL office today. You kind of ready to put that game to bed or what?
Well, let's just revisit it real quickly. What was your thoughts? I know that Pouncey is appealing as of today.
All the players that were suspended are appealing their suspensions.
I did see that the Ojanobi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. The lineman from the Browns, I saw where his suspension was upheld. And I know that Garrett is appealing his suspension. I don't know. Have you heard if there have been anything on the Pouncey or Myles Garrett?
Well, the one thing I heard about them is that don't expect anything to be said soon because they don't need to move on it right away. Like, they can take their time with the appeal because Pouncey, if he's lucky, his gets moved from, say, 3 to 2. I doubt they go 3 to 1 because they probably don't want him playing in the rematch game against Cleveland in week 13.
Yeah.
So they have some time. Myles Garrett is not going to be playing anytime soon.
Right.
So they have some time to think about, okay, well, they have to give him some number. The collective bargaining agreement states that you cannot have an indefinite suspension. Like, you have to give them a concrete number. And so they'll have some time to think about that, and then they'll be able to do that. So I don't think they'll have to soon, but yeah.
However, you can put a player on a commissioner's exempt list, which is in turn is an indefinite suspension. So,
correct.
Where there is a will, there is a way. What's your thought on Mason Rudolph not pursuing any criminal charges or going down that road?
I get it. I mean, I don't think that was a look that he probably wanted attached to his name. I mean, that would be a big deal. I mean,
yeah,
you're talking about criminal trial. I'm not saying he wouldn't have a case, but at the same time, I think you're looking at it and saying, man, that would be it might have been unprecedented in the NFL. It wasn't unprecedented in the NHL. Marty McSorley was, he was basically, I think he never played again after he got, it was assault charges placed against him after he hit, I think, Brashears with a stick from behind.
He's super goon.
Yeah, Marty McSorley, man.
He was a super goon.
But yeah, so anyways, I don't think so. I think that if it would have been more damaging, let's say he didn't get hit with the back part of the padding of the helmet, if he would have gotten hit with the side of it, that might be a different story. But thankfully, we're not talking about that.
Yeah, it's weird. The NFL is this brotherhood, this fraternity. You wouldn't think that it was, given that one guy swung a helmet at another player. You might laugh at my statement when I say that, but it is a fraternity. It is a brotherhood. And to some extent, I would think that players would think like this was kind of a violation of quote unquote man code, player code. Like, you kind of took it a step far, given the fact that it could be argued that you instigated the whole entire thing.
Well, I do think his agent played his cards perfectly, saying things like, no, nothing has been removed from the table in terms of our options and what we're going to do. They did everything that the NFL did not want a lawsuit on their hands. So what do? They say, hey, we might sue. We don't know. We'll take it we'll play it one day at a time. And next thing you know, Myles Garrett gets suspended indefinitely. That's probably the best case scenario for the Steelers and for Mason Rudolph. So there you go.
Now, typically, and it's been a long time, typically we get to this a little bit earlier because with a Thursday night, it seems like it's been forever since they played, given everything that it's occurred post game. But oftentimes, listeners, we talk about a winners and a losers. And I know, Jeff, you talked about Mark Barron being a loser in particular. Let me give you some PFF grades for Mark Barron in comparison to Vince Vici Williams. In terms of overall PFF grade, Vince Williams 76.2, 11th rated at his position. Mark Barron 49.4, 66th. Run defense, Vince Williams 82.4, 7th. Mark Barron 58.4. Coverage grade, Vince Williams 57.1, Mark Barron 43.7. Now, you can take PFF grades with a grain of salt. However, the one thing that you can't take away from PFF is they actually go through film. They comb through it now. It's the eye test of who's going through the film, but they do go through film. What are your thoughts overall on Barron from this game? Is he still one of the biggest losers to you? And just what's your thought on Barron overall this season?
I think Barron, sometimes I feel like the Steelers coaching staff suffers from the sin of hubris and extreme pride, if you don't know what hubris is. And they bring in Mark Barron as a free agent. Actually, yeah, it was a free agent pickup. And I think that they expected really good production is a difficult word to use when you're talking about an inside linebacker / safety. I think they were looking for someone that was going to be really athletic, really fast, be able to play the inside and give them a chance to ease Devin Bush into it. What they got was a flipping bill of goods. Is what they got, because he hasn't been any of that. He hasn't been fast, hasn't shown the sideline to sideline athleticism that was talked about when they brought him in. He's missed a lot of tackles, and his coverage has been one of his biggest weak links, which you just stated with those grades. And what did we say when Vince Williams got healthy and he came back to the team? We said, if Mark Barron can't cover, what is the number one thing that Vince Williams doesn't do is coverage. So if you're not going to have a guy that you're like, think about a player like LJ Fort. Well, he might excel in coverage, but he might be lackluster in run support. Vince Williams is great in run support. Your statistics prove that. And yet he struggles in coverage. Mark Barron struggles tackling, struggles in run support, yet can't cover either. So why would you play Vince Williams more? I don't know. They put a lot of trust in Mark Barron. He wears the green dot on his helmet more often than not. I honestly don't get it anymore.
Well, I think it goes to your point, Jeff, about hubris. And let me add another adjective or a verb, so to speak, corroborate. They want him to corroborate what they saw on film. And that leads directly to hubris and to pride. And because of what they thought he would be able to add to this defense, sometimes it takes coaching staffs a bit of a minute to get off of it. They don't want to admit their mistake. And it's the same thing we talk about all the time, Jeff, when it comes to failed draft picks. How I would just rather a coaching staff or an organization just give up on a guy. If it's not working, just turn the page, give up on a guy, just admit you got it wrong, waive the guy, get somebody else in. I understand these are draft assets, so to speak. You need to be patient. But at some point in time, patience runs out. Right now, according to those grades and according to what you've seen on film, I've seen on film, others have seen on film, Vince looks like the more confident player. And I don't know if bad coverage grades are enough to keep Vince Williams off the field. Is there another loser from that game that you had?
Well, there could have been a lot of them. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like I said, it's been a long time since they played. Thinking about the game itself, I just thought the offensive line in general just really, really looked like a flaming bag of dog poo. On
Flaming.
that, yeah.
Flaming.
Kudos to those Billy Madison fans out there. Anyways, they didn't do anything well in week 11. What's that?
Who's Billy Madison?
You've never seen the movie Billy Madison with Adam Sandler?
Nah, I've seen some.
Oh my god,
I've seen some other Adam Sandler movies.
that was his biggest. That was his first hit. Was Billy Madison.
I saw the one where he was in prison playing football.
That's
The
the
longest yard.
which is a
Yeah,
remake. It's a remake.
Yeah, I saw that one. I saw the one with Chris Rock and all of his friends.
That was
And David Spade was in it.
Grown ups.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, man. And I used to see him. I remember seeing him on the Cosby Show, back in the 80s and 90s, and he was on the Cosby Show. But
there's a scene in Billy Madison where he and his buddies get drunk and they put flaming bags of dog poop on this guy's front stoop, and this old man comes out and he has to stomp it out, and then when he stomps it out, it's dog poop.
Because I was wondering, like, if the flames made it smell worse. I was like, I've always heard that. I never knew actually what that meant, because I guess I need to just go to Xfinity and watch it so I can probably turn it off. And like Billy Madison.
You know my sense of humor already by now.
Yes,
and so you have to know it's a movie that you shut your mind off and just laugh.
Right. Like The Mandalorian for me, not for you. Billy Madison for you, probably not for me.
Okay, so
there we go. But to get back to the game.
So I was talking about the offensive line.
Right.
People want to say in the headline and the title of this episode is, will Mason Rudolph bounce back in week 12? Let me ask you this, and this correlates to the offensive line. Did Mason Rudolph even have a chance? I mean, he made some bad throws. I'm not excusing him. But he had his worst game as a starter. But with that said, his receivers were decimated. I mean, when Johnny Holton is your best receiver, that's bad. Well, James Washington was still playing. I shouldn't say that. I don't want to do that to James Washington. But there's no running game. The offensive line wasn't protecting well. I think he had 8 or 9 quarterback hits on the game. So, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of losers, I'm going to give you a loser on the defensive side. Mike Hilton.
Really?
I think Mike Hilton was a loser. There is some stuff on film, particularly on the Beckham big play. You know, that's a play where he's overreacting to play action, and he's letting Jarvis Landry run clean through the field.
So you're talking about the first series.
Yes, the first series.
People were saying that was Minka. Was it not Minka?
That wasn't on Minka. He's supposed to cover Jarvis Landry in the slot and carry him and carry that post route, and Minka's supposed to have a double coverage because Nelson is playing outside technique. You notice that when Beckham runs the route, Nelson is on his back. That's because he was playing outside technique, outside leverage, and allowed him to run up the field, assuming he had Minka Fitzpatrick with the deep safety help. But Minka had to cover Jarvis Landry because Mike Hilton bit on the play action. And so you're seeing some of the coverage stuff crop up with Hilton. Also, the Steelers have a very difficult time defending bunt sets. And figuring out and sorting out who's supposed to cover who, man to man, when teams put a bunt set to a side. They're not passing it off, and guys are running cleanly. So when you see that touchdown pass in the end zone, I think it was maybe the second touchdown pass where the guy is clean, no one's around him in the left side of the end zone. That's because they botched the coverage incredibly, and the guy runs
Joe
free.
Hayden didn't even know what they were doing. He ran onto the field last second because they didn't have enough players on the field.
Yeah, that's a coaching point that has to be cleaned up. So I would say Mike Hilton is another, but to the offensive line, and I don't know if you guys have written about it on the site. The offensive line, that pass protection in the last 2 games, 7 sacks, probably 20 plus quarterback hits. Some of it is Mason Rudolph not navigating the pocket well and not moving in those little spaces within the pocket. And that's to be expected given his experience. But that offensive line, it looks like almost it hit a wall. And there's some concern with Pouncey probably being out for the next couple of weeks. And thinking of that, what's the shuffle? They're going to put Finney as the center, and everybody else slots into their regular pieces.
Yeah, I would suggest that. The question would be, what would happen if Finney goes down in game? who comes in and takes snaps at center. They just signed another center to the practice squad. I don't know if they promote him, but it's not good because if there's one position that they don't really lack depth, it's center. Finney's great, but when you move Finney to center, now all of a sudden your guard depth is not as good. You're going to have to move Filer to guard, and then Chooks would have to come in. It's a puzzle that you don't want to have to put together.
Well, let's move to the Bengals game.
Okay.
Or do you want to answer the Mason bounce back? We can answer it as we talk about
the headline of this
game.
episode. I feel like we should answer it.
So, what's your thought? So, was this just a bad game, or will Mason bounce back?
I did my burning question this last weekend was, have we seen the best of Mason Rudolph? And I definitely think that I don't think we have seen the best of Mason Rudolph, by the way. I think that this was the worst that we've seen, and this might be the worst that we would see. 4 interceptions, really bad decision-making, horrible ball placement. I could go on. I feel like his bounce back would be just somewhere in the median, and his middle ground. The average, what he's been doing all season up until week 11, to be honest with you. I mean, he's had very mundane stats. He's not having to throw the ball a ton. He's protecting the football, which outside of week 11 he had been doing. I think that he'll bounce back, but it's not going to be a bounce back like you would see from Ben. When Ben throws 5 picks in one game and then he comes back and throws 5 touchdowns for 450 yards. That's not going to be his bounce back. His bounce back is going to be, and prepare yourself for this against the Bengals, super, super cautious, not making risky throws, especially with a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster not playing. He's not going to. I would be stunned. Let me put it this way. I would be stunned if he goes into this game saying, I'm going to air this thing out. Period.
But here's the thing, though. Although he's not going to air it out, and there was a stat from that game that was just really eye-opening. The Steelers averaged in that game 3.7 yards per play. And that's phenomenally low. That is phenomenally low. And this is a team that in that game, I believe, attempted 40 plus passes. So this is phenomenally low. So to your point, Jeff, what does the bounce back game look like? I'm looking at the schedule, and he's been the starter since the San Francisco game. What does it look like? What does his bounce back game look like? Does it look like Miami? Does it look like the Colts game? What game does it look like when we say bounce back? Because I think he will bounce back as well. My concern with him in the game where there were some plays to be made that he missed. And I think what we've seen on Twitter, and because I know I've seen that clip and I've watched it myself on film, is when he had Deontay Johnson coming across the middle. And if he hits Deontay Johnson, he's still running. He's running from Cleveland to California because nobody would have caught him. And that would have been a touchdown. And that's an easy throw. But he moves into the pressure. He doesn't feel the pressure to his left. He moves into the pressure and has to make an errant throw and really miss that play. So, but Jeff, what does his bounce back game look like?
Well, I'll put
what game does it look like?
First, I'll put Getting Bent with Bo is a longtime listener of the show. He's the one that coined Lance and his IKEA couch. He said, "Good, bad, or ugly, a win is a win," and that's what Mason needs to bounce back. I'll say that's number one. Second, Lance is showing off the IKEA. I'm going to go a step further and say that if you were looking for a performance that's going to be confidence-inducing, meaning fans are going to say, all right, that was just one game. That was just a blip on the radar. We're kind of moving in the right direction again. In that respect, I would say that it would need to be a second half Miami Dolphins type game.
Okay.
Because remember, he started that game awful. That was he came back. He was coming back from concussion. He looked trigger happy, but in the second half, he settled in, made some big throws, got the win, obviously. I would say second half. What do you think?
I agree. That's a good call. That's a good call. I think that was probably the best half of football he played. And I thought Dave and his brother brought out some great points about just how this offense is starting. You know, just how bad the coordinated part of the offense, the scripted part of the offense, the stuff that they work on, that they're specifically game planning. Because I mean, we all know, listen to the show, you have your script, you have your initial game plan, things that you want to hit, and then there are adjustments that you make, and then there's nuance that you have in terms of play calling. I would like to see him in that script be executed better. But I think Steeler fans would take the second half of the Dolphins. But I think that's a great place to end it in terms of our discussion of that point. I think we both think that he will bounce back. I think we think this is an aberration game. However, the bounce back will not be Ben Roethlisberger-esque throwing for 505 touchdowns. I think you're right, Jeff. As you said it a couple of weeks ago, we really have to dial down our expectations from Mason Rudolph. But Jeff, jump into the injury report, because I think that's the big story about this Bengals game. How banged up are the Steelers going into this one?
They're banged up. They've already had to place, I don't know how many players on injured reserve. They've been signing guys from other practice squads. They brought back Tuzar Skipper. I mean, they're doing their best to try to the offense is decimated. Absolutely. So Marquise Pouncey's out with suspension. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster, who did not practice, who's probably not going to play with a knee injury, and he's still in the concussion protocol. Deontay Johnson practiced today, but he's still in the concussion protocol. I'm trying to think of Benny Snell. Let me bring up the actual official report here from.
I know I'm hearing that James Conner is kind of iffy for the game as well.
James Conner, I believe, did not practice today at all. I don't think he would play. I'm not sure he should play, to be completely honest with you. Here we go. Dave has it right here. So Deontay Johnson was a full participant, even though he has concussion. Juju Smith-Schuster did not practice. Benny, no Jets. It was a full participant with a knee. Artie Burns with a knee was limited. Mark Barron, not injury related. He got a day off. James Conner, shoulder, did not practice. Bud Dupree with an arm. It limited. Marquise Pouncey, suspension. Nick Vannett, illness. He did not practice. Vance McDonald, a day off. And Ola Adeniyi with a concussion was a full participant.
Benny, no Jets. So let me riddle me this. You're much better with the roster and the lineups than I am. Give me your starting offense, right? Give me your starting offense, right? Give me your 11 personnel offense, 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end. Who starts? Who are the skill players when they go 11 personnel? Because that is a formation that they like to use.
3 wide receivers. You would have James Washington, assuming Deontay Johnson clears everything. He would be out there. Your third one might be Tevin Jones, who was brought up before the Browns game, number 14, I believe. He played in the Browns game. So it might be him. If you're looking for a tight end, it would be Vance. And then Jalen Samuels will be your number 1 running back.
Ooh, Tevin. That's the dash guy.
Well, they have a bunch of dash guys now.
That's
they have
a dash guy.
His last name is Kane, who is a receiver they picked up off the Colts practice squad, went to Clemson, supposed to be a speed guy, deep threat. Who knows if he can grasp the playbook soon enough? If he and Rudolph can be, yeah.
You know, and for listeners, let me let you guys in on the dash guy. That if you didn't hear that, that's a running joke that I came up with and we came up with on the show about when guys are so far down on the depth chart, there's just a dash. So when you get past the 3rd string, there's just a dash. Some of these guys are dash guys where you will never know their names after this week. Wow. So let's just use that as a segue into your offensive game keys and how will the injuries impact the Steeler offense?
It's definitely going to limit them in terms of what they can do. And they were already limited before when they had a full complement of players available to them. And so for me, I think what really is frustrating is that people talk about the running game. So now you're talking about an offensive line that's missing its center. People talk about the running game, and your starting running back continues to be injured and on the shelf. Talk about the passing game. I mean, your best wide receiver and questionably one of your more dynamic receivers in Johnson are probably Johnson. I mean, we hope that he plays, but he has to get cleared medically through the concussion protocol. So this whole offense is just in a state of flux right now. And so for me, I look at it and say that the keys to victory are third downs, pretty much. If you want to pinpoint it, in my opinion, to one statistic, it would be third down percentage.
I'm gonna give you another one.
Go ahead.
They cannot turn the ball over.
The streak must end, you're saying?
The streak must end. They cannot, with the guys that they're going to put out there, they cannot turn the ball over on offense. And I'm going to challenge you as the editor of the website. Let's say Deontay Johnson does not play and Juju does not play. Who are the 3 wide receivers do they put out there if they play 11 personnel?
They'd probably throw Johnny Holton out there.
Okay, so you got Tevin Campbell. I'm calling him Tevin Campbell.
Oh my God.
Can we talk for a minute? I'm calling him Tevin Campbell because that's the only way I'm going to remember him if I call him Tevin Campbell. Can we talk for a minute? Girl, I want to know your name. That's the only way I'm going to remember him. So you're going to put out Johnny Holton.
Yep.
Tevin Campbell.
And James Washington.
Oh, oof.
You're starting wide receivers for a critical Week 12 game. Critical.
And so riddle me this. So James Washington is the leading receiver of that group, I think, with 20 receptions, maybe 35 in his NFL career.
Well, we know Johnny Holton has 1.
I have 0.
He has 1 with the Steelers. He's been targeted a bunch. 1 catch.
Maybe they can put a magnet in his helmet and a chip in the ball, and it would stick to his helmet. That's pretty tough. I think what you're saying, Jeff, defense is going to have to win this game.
Well, the offense can do it if they just convert third downs and just move the chains and get drives in any way, shape, or form. The last time they played the Bengals, it was a similar story that was being sung. And they came out and they did jet sweeps and ran the Wildcat, and they did whatever it took to win that week. That's what it's going to look like this time. They've had 10 days to prepare. They're going to have to find some way, somehow, to just manufacture a win. People talk about that in baseball all the time. You got to manufacture runs. It's not pretty. Bunting guys over into scoring position and driving them in is not fun for fans. It's not sending balls over the fence, but at the same time, it can work. And so the Steelers are going to have to manufacture a win. Like in baseball, you manufacture a run. You're just going to have to scratch and claw, do whatever it takes to just win this game.
There's a lot been talked about the running game. Dave did a great article about the running game. Big up to Dave Schofield. My dad really enjoyed Dave's article about the running game. I've looked at Cincinnati the last couple of games. Cincinnati is not very good stopping the run. I mean, the Raiders pushed them around, but that Raider front is really physical. Pushed them around. I've seen teams running pretty well against them. Can the Steelers running game have some life in this, or do you think it's going to look like what we've seen for the last several weeks? Kind of inconsistent, around 3.2, 3.4 yards per carry. They only run it about 15 to 17 times. Rinse, repeat.
They need more than 20 carries, I think, to be giving them an actual chance. And again, I would be okay with a lower average if they're converting on key downs. If they just improved on third and short, I'd be happy. You don't need that. It's great when you break off a 45-yard run when Trey Edmonds does, but at the same time, if Trey Edmonds can just turn out 2 yards a carry, give me the old Jerome Bettis 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You're going to convert a lot of third downs that way, and that's what they need. They need to just have sustained drives, time-consuming drives. It's what they've lacked. That's what they've lacked in a big way.
And a lot of you guys out there have talked about the impact of the loss of Mr. Butt Naked and Robbed, Le'Veon Bell, and his impact. And I've talked about how I thought this offensive line was set up for Le'Veon Bell. I mean, the one thing I think you do see on film is that Connor and both Samuels don't have the best vision. There are times when it is blocked pretty well, they don't see it, or they're indecisive, and the running play gets gobbled up. So some of it is on the running backs, although I would say this offensive line has struggled somewhat to get push. On the defense, and looking at this offense of the Bengals, I mean, I think the key here, there are two things. You know, you really have to put pressure on Ryan Finley. Ryan Finley is making his third start. And I think you have to really get off that patchwork offensive line that they have. They've given up 36 sacks, 27th in the National Football League. The Steelers have gotten 34, which is 4th. I think the matchup is John Jerry versus Bud Dupree. I mean, at this point, TJ Watt's going to eat. Watt's going to eat. He's going to eat against everybody. We know that. But if Bud Dupree wants to get that money, man, he needs to go to work on John Jerry, number 64. He needs to go to work. And this needs to be a game where all of those turnovers that we've seen, the Steelers need them this week because of how decimated they are on the offensive side of the ball. Just for you guys, just to give you guys some numbers on Finley, the one thing that I saw about Finley on tape is he's mobile like Baker Mayfield. He's probably even more mobile than Baker Mayfield. So they're going to have to be disciplined in how they rush him, and they can't rush past him, and they're going to have to keep him contained in the pocket. I think they'll play some combination of coverages, some man, some zone, but he does have the running ability where if you turn your back to him, he can make some plays with his legs. But when you look at some of his stats, completing 47.5% of his passes, yards per completion, 4.6, yards per game, 175, 1 TD, 2 picks, been sacked 7 times, QBR 23, his rating is 52.8. They're only converting 35% of their third downs with him. They've only been in the red zone 2 times in 21 drives. You can get after this guy. He's a rookie. He's inexperienced. And this is one of the few times, riddle me this, Jeff, where the Steelers are going into a game where they have the better quarterback.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I haven't seen much of this kid play, to be honest with you. I'm not really tuning in to watch the Cincinnati Bengals.
As you should.
I do know they're probably going to be without AJ Green. He didn't practice today. So that's one less weapon. If he doesn't practice the rest of this week, I think he's pulling a
I thought they put him on IR for the year.
No, I thought he was. I didn't think so.
I'm not sure. For some reason I thought they put him on IR and that he was out for the year.
So, this Bengals game, like you said, the outside linebackers have to do their job, but so does the interior. And that's something you notice a lot. Baker Mayfield did this, other quarterbacks, and a quarterback that I have watched who kind of makes me nervous in the future is Kyler Murray, is how if the outside linebackers get shoved up the arc, it just leaves a wide open lane. And Baker Mayfield was able to run to his right and make good throws on the run. And Mike Tomlin was absolutely really glowing of Baker Mayfield's ability to extend the play after the game as well as in his press conference on Tuesday. But in terms of the Bengals, they're winless for a reason. I mean, they're not a good football team, but it doesn't mean that they're not playing tough. It doesn't mean that they're not capable of pulling off an upset. I think the Steelers play better at Paul Brown Stadium against the Bengals than they do at home. I don't know. It's good. It's not going to be easy because this offense, nothing is easy.
And to your point, Jeff, I mean, if you look at Joe Mixon, and that's another guy that they're going to have to stop. I mean, Joe Mixon is would be the best running back on the Steelers. By far, he'd be the best running back on the Steelers. And people have asked, is Joe Connor the answer? James Conner the answer? No, James Conner isn't the answer. The answer would be a back like Chubb or a back like Mixon. He would be the number 2 guy, and Jalen Samuels would be the third down back. That would be a much better complement of backs. I mean, that would be a nice 1-2 punch. I mean, you look at Cleveland. I mean, they have those two backs up there. I mean, Chubb and Hunt. I mean, so there are definitely better backs in the division. So to answer that question that some people have had, I do not think, Connor is the guy. Let me give you a stat that I found on ESPN. Let me just read this. This is a eye-popping next-gen stat that the Bengals wide receivers struggle to get any space against the Raiders secondary. The unit averaged only 1.4 separation yards. And coming into week 11, the lowest by any group of wide receivers was 1.3 yards. So what it tells you is in the passing game, the weapons just aren't there. And with a rookie signal caller and the way that the Steelers get after teams, sacking them and get after offensive lines, they got after a very good one in the Colts. I think they'll get after the Cincinnati Bengals in this one. So, Jeff, it's prediction time.
That's right. That's right. I think the last spread I saw was the Steelers were giving a touchdown, giving 7.
Wow.
And that says a
Wow.
lot.
Wow. That says, wow.
They're on the road, and Mason Rudolph is the quarterback. So,
wow.
I'm going to go as far as to say that I think the Steelers win this game, but I would not take them to cover. I've just there's a part of me that thinks this game's not going to be easy. I think it's going to be close early. I don't think that Mason Rudolph is going to just jump off the screen like a lot of people are expecting or hoping. And I'm not changing my tune on Mason Rudolph. I'm just trying to be real and realistic with what my expectations are for him now. I'm going to say the Steelers win this game. Let's go with 23-17.
What's the over under on this game?
I don't know. Let me check. We ran that article. Go ahead and give your prediction, and I'll have that.
And thinking about the game, I think this is going to be a low-scoring, very tough AFC North football game. I think you have two offenses that are struggling, but I think the difference in the team clearly is, and also the one thing I left out, they have a very good kickoff returner. I think his last name is Wilson. He's a very good kickoff returner. This is a game where if the Steelers can play clean football, do not give up a return in special teams, not turn the ball over. I think this is a game where their defense can dominate this game and put the offense in some short down and distance situations to really help this offense. I kind of like your score, Jeff, but I'm going to say the Steelers cover, but I'm going to say they win 24-13.
Okay, the over-under is 39.
So I would take the under. So 24-13 would be under that. I'd say 24-13. I would take the under. I think the Steelers give up a touchdown and a couple of field goals. They make some red zone stops where you, Dave, everybody in Steeler Nation, their heart will be pumping very hard and they're short of breath, like they're going to get a heart attack that the Steelers are going to lose to a winless team. It's going to be like that. I think it's going to be a nip and tuck game for a bit. I think the Steelers need turnovers to win this game. That defense is going to have to force some turnovers and put them into some short field situations, or at least play really well on third down and really control time of possession, as well as have very good field position. But I like the Steelers to win 24-13. Who do you think will be the player of the game on either side of the ball for the Steelers, or a guy that will surprise their impact in terms of their impact in the game?
I think James Washington would be who I pick. I think that because Juju's not there, I think he'll step up. I think he'll play well. He has a rapport with Mason Rudolph that's been well documented. So for me, I'm going to say James Washington. On the offensive side. Defensive side, I'm going to go with haven't heard from Devin Bush as much recently. I'll go with the rookie. I think maybe he's due for a couple splash plays. What about you?
On the defensive side, I'm going to go with Bud Dupree. I think Bud Dupree gets his contract on Sunday. I think Bud Dupree, after Sunday, that contract is solidified, and he's going to sign. That contract will basically be signed after Sunday. On the offensive side of football, I'm going to go with Mason Rudolph. I'm gonna say Mason Rudolph has a bounce back game, and I think the offensive line has a bounce back game. I think they blocked Dunlop, uh, and they blocked those guys, Geno Atkins, and I think they blocked those guys, and they play Mason Rudolph like good football. Let's not confuse that with fantasy football. Start Mason or FanDuel. Start Mason. No, solid. Don't turn it over. Make some plays. Convert some third downs. Keep the sticks moving. Game manager, Mason Rudolph style. So there you have it. I've picked them, which I know everybody on the live chat is like, dude, you picked them last week. They lost. Why are you picking them again? Please stop. And Jeff, as always, with his weekly Steeler victory pick.
Well, but the thing is, this time though, like this is a game normally I would say they win handily, and I have it being close. It's within a score. I would love for them to prove me wrong and have this just be a blowout. From like the moment that from the first quarter on, the Steelers look comfortable. They look like they're prepared. I know I'm an idiot for saying that because I doubt it's going to happen, but nonetheless, that's what I hope for.
You want it to look like the Ravens when they played Cincinnati.
Yes, make them look like a JV high school team.
Because the Ravens beat them half to death. Let me ask you one last question before we get out of here, Jeff.
Sure.
And this just jumped in my head as I was thinking about the rundown of the show. Are you bullish on this squad or are you bearish? And for you guys out there, bullish is just good. Bearish is falling prices or bad. Are you bullish on this team and this team's future, or are you bearish on it?
I'd say I'm bullish on it. I think it's the fact that they've battled back to 5-5 still amazes me, to be honest with you. They had some great help from the defense, and they're going to need that help again. But I think this team still has potential they have not seen. You every now and then will see a team, and believe it or not, I put the Ravens in this category, where you wonder, can it get better than this? And to me, that's a scary proposition as you go into week 12. You wonder, are you going to plateau? Are teams going to start figuring things out? Are you going to start to struggle? I don't think the Steelers have reached that point yet. I think that obviously on offense, there's plenty of room for improvement. I think the best is still yet to come for this team, to quote Frank Sinatra. But I think that also you look at, can the coaches get them there? Can they not have these gigantic brain farts and stuff like that? So it'll be interesting. What about you?
Well, to quote my folks in the Yay area, all my Bay Area fans out there, I'm going to use a term that folks from the Yay area do to describe things. It's an adjective. I'm going to say I'm hella bullish. I'm hella bullish on the Steelers. And the reason why is they finally got this defense fixed. Now, there's some areas that they need to improve on third down in the red zone. They're kind of just middle of the road in the NFL. But they hella fixed this defense. Now, there's some free agent signings. I sent you some stuff today about where Stud Dupree rates in terms of free agents. They have Stud Dupree as the number 20 free agent. If they could bring him back, retain Hargrave, or find a better player than Hargrave, that they're positioned to play really good defense in the future. So with that defense being where it is, and if a fat guy on the sidelines drops 35 bills and comes back and can throw the football and slang that thing next year, that I'm hella bullish on them. The only thing that gives me a little trepidation when I think of this is the Ravens look right. The Ravens look right, and they fully embrace Lamar Jackson's skill set and what he can do. I mean, that offense is innovative. They do a lot of different stuff. They're breaking stuff. I mean, they were running the option. I mean, I was like, gee, beneath. They just pulled out the option this week. That's my issue. Browns, not so much. They're undisciplined. I don't think Freddie Kitchens is a good head coach, and I still think they're volatile. And the Bungles are the Bungles. But I'm hella bullish on this team because of the defense. I think the defense is in a place where if they can get some consistent quarterback play, this team could be dangerous. I just don't think it'll be this year, but I think I'm really bullish on the future.
Well, just with the Ravens talk a second, for me, I am a big proponent of playing your best ball at the right time. And I'll be interested to see if the Ravens can keep this up, because just remember, it was just last year where the Steelers were 7-2 and everyone was talking big things and they missed the playoffs. The Ravens are 8-2, and I'm not saying they're going to miss the playoffs, but things can still fall apart, and they don't have a cakewalk schedule either.
True.
They still have to play the 49ers. They have to go on the road to play the Rams on Monday night. There are some tough tasks ahead of them. I'm just saying that there's a chance that they slip up. They'll still probably win the division, and if they do win the division, just let it be known that since the AFC North, or since they reconfigured the divisions in 2001, not once has a team won the division 3 times in a row. Not once.
Okay.
So keep that in mind.
They're just to not talk about that squad too much more. They're going to smash the Rams.
Their Rams defense is not a joke.
They're going to smash the Rams.
I hope Aaron Donald gets his hands on Lamar Jackson.
Well, he's going to have to put a rocket pack on him himself to catch up.
Come on, man. He'll get him. He'll get him. Wait.
He might. I mean, they're impressive. You're right. I mean, there's a lot of season left. Jeff, close us out.
All right, everybody. Look, I forgot to mention it earlier in the show, but a lot of people ask how they can help us, and super chats are a great way to do that. And we did have a couple here. Snowman puts $2 in the tip jar. He says, Jackson will get ear hold. Lance, someone asked the question earlier, and that is, who do you think will have a better performance Sunday, Vance McDonald or James Washington?
James Washington. With Mason Rudolph, they've just eliminated tight ends in the passing game. So it'll be James Washington.
Okay. Here's another one. Do you think the Steelers will look at a running back in the second round next year?
Absolutely. They better.
I don't know.
Well, you're right, Jeff. You're right. I
would say wide receiver is almost as big of a need as a running back.
Tell me if your hesitation, though. This is what I was sensing. Let's see if my Jedi powers are resonating right now. Your hesitation was, well, they don't run the ball anyway. Why would they go get a running back in the second round? They only want to run it like 15, 17 times and let a guy that's only in his first year starting throw it 44 times. And if Ben is coming back, hey, you know what happens with the running game.
I'm a big fan of the Christmas season, as Lance knows. And there's several Christmas songs. They talk about the jolly fat man with the big white beard. We're just basically talking about Ben Roethlisberger minus the white beard. Okay, so it's the jolly fat man with the big brown beard. You know what he wants to do.
Shotgun slinger.
Yep, throw it. So why in the hell would you waste a second round draft pick on a running back when you're not going to use them that much? In other words, I'd say either look for a free agent that you can pick up that's not going to be a lot of money. You might hit running back again in the middle rounds. Benny No Jets was a third round pick, I think, or is he fourth?
No Jets.
Yeah. I'm looking at wide receiver in second round, personally.
And there's a bunch of them. I saw 6 play in the LSU Alabama game. I saw 6 of them play. I'd take any of them. Woof. Them boys was ready to roll.
There's depth there at wide receiver, and that's what they really need. And I think if they were to get a player as a rookie that can come in and really bring some splash, that's what this offense needs.
You see that big kid in Minnesota, the wide receiver. He's a monster too. There's a ton of guys this year.
It's very deep class.
There's some monsters, and a personal friend of ours, her cousin. Is the wide receiver on Clemson's team, the kid last year, the freshman that absolutely destroyed Alabama. And he's a monster too, and he's only a sophomore. He can't even come out this year.
Yeah.
So there's some monsters around.
So, yeah, that's where I would go. But that's just me. So, anyways, what I was saying before we got to those quick super chats is that some people give the super chats. They're great. they're giving our hard-earned money. But at the same time, the best thing we can ask everyone to do is to just hit the thumbs up button, like these videos, all the videos. If you comment on the videos, all of it, likes, comments, shares, it really works in our favor in terms of the YouTube algorithm and helping our exposure. We have seen a huge uptick in our likes since we started talking about it. Over 200 typically, we get over 200 typical likes, but we're getting, every show has over 2,000 views. So that shows me that people are watching, yet not just hitting a stupid button. Hit the button, people. Hit the like button. We appreciate it. And as always, wherever you're
Hashtag
listening.
just take it. Hashtag. That's the inside joke too. You guys got to listen to Jeff. What was that the show that was a couple of weeks ago?
That was the Steelers preview before the Browns game.
Okay, before the hashtag just take it. If you want to know what that means and watch Jeff laugh, hashtag just listen. Hashtag just hit the like button, but definitely hashtag just take it. Hashtag 2 a.m.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, so like the videos, we appreciate all the support. Remember that behindthesteelcurtain.com is your one-stop shop for all your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. Lance, go ahead and send us out.
As always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
We'll be back next week to preview the Steelers versus Browns game in week 13. That'll be a doozy. Take it easy.
The rematch.